this I don't remember who said this, who said this, but this came a quote from many years ago. But someone once said that with every major technology evolution, people overestimate its impact in the short run, and they underestimate its impact over the long run. People said that about computers. It's also true about social media. It is completely transforming the way we live our lives. And so again, to ignore it is foolhardy. But I have sort of three quick pieces of advice for marketers, for agencies, and then for journalists and media companies. Let me start with media companies. Then this has nothing to do with increasing your reach. It's about making your people better journalists. There is a tremendous amount of research that every journalist can do on LinkedIn about companies and industries that they cover. And so get smarter at it. Every week or so, we hear companies journalists breaking stories because of something their journalists saw on LinkedIn. Whether it's because, for example, last year, the New York Times broke a story about Apple acquiring a company, not because Apple had announced it. And those of you that know that Apple's very secretive about these things. But the people at the acquired company, as soon as they got acquired, they changed their LinkedIn profile to say, you now work at Apple. And the New York Times broke the story. That's just one small example of things that happen every day. So a colleague of mine, Krista, runs these training sessions, LinkedIn for journalists. I really recommend everyone gets on it. Second thing, for marketers, something that costs you almost nothing in terms of money except for time, is to establish a company page and start building a follower ecosystem. Again, it's a resource that you can leverage in good times and bad, and something you can continue to cultivate over time. It's not just a matter, by the way, of building a company page or building a fan page or on Facebook or acquiring Twitter followers. It's then cultivating that audience. So again, it's really easy to get started. I really recommend you start now. Second thing you should all be doing is realizing that your employees are an incredible asset. For many of the world's greatest companies, 30 to 80% of their employees are on LinkedIn. That's such a powerful asset for you, because those thousands of conversations that are happening about your company, you can have an opportunity to influence. And on social media, people are not expecting to hear from your PR firm. They're expecting to hear from your people directly. So when there's a conversation about a technology issue, they expect to hear from one of your product managers. That's an asset you can use. You need to begin, though, with a very simple set of guidelines. I think IBM has one of the best. This section, I think there are 4 or 5 bullet points. It begins with, we trust you. Number 2, don't disclose confidential information. Number 3, act professionally. And there may have been a 4 or 5, I don't remember what they are. But again, give a very simple set of guidelines and then allow your employees to become an asset that you can use. Now, when I say asset you can use, this is not about telling them what to say, but arming them with information so they can amplify your message. Last thing for agencies. Often I speak to agency leaders from around the world, and I often ask people, how many of you, or I speak to their teams, and I ask them, how many of you are on LinkedIn? All the senior people raise their hand, all the junior people don't. And that's a missed opportunity for you to help leverage the team that you've built at your agency. Because the reality is, every one of your employees can build their professional brand on LinkedIn and build the credibility of your organization in front of their clients and your prospective clients. So there, again, a very simple set of things people can do, but again, I encourage you to encourage your team members to start taking these steps. Again, there's a lot more that you can do and make an investment, but as Earl said, it's time to get started if you haven't done it already. Kate?
Well, I think I'd have 2 things to add. And the first really is about listening. And it's become almost a cliche in the world of social media that you need to listen. Everyone goes, oh yeah, I know that, it's a conversation, I get it. Listening isn't just about listening to what people are telling you directly, though that's part of it. You don't always need to be broadcasting. Sit back and see what people are saying about you as a way to get into this if you're not in it already. But listening is also about listening to the data, listening to the clues. Which are the most commented stories? Which are the bits of content that are really picking up traction? What's the pattern? If somebody comes in to your website from Facebook, do they behave differently to if they've arrived on your site from LinkedIn? The FT have recently found that they do. People are much more likely to register on their site if they've clicked through from LinkedIn than if they've come from Google. And they're slightly more likely if they've come from Facebook, but even more so if they've come from LinkedIn. Can you actually listen to that complete journey? Can you map that? Have you got the technologies in place to really leverage the opportunity that all these networks are giving you? They're giving you lots of clues. If you're just letting all that data go or not feeding it back into your business process and the way you understand your company, then you're missing a huge opportunity. I like to call it exhaust data. It's just kind of flying out the back door somewhere and you're not really fully listening. So that's one thing. The second thing is, and it relates to a very British statement, we have an old saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And all it means is don't get rid of everything just because some things are new. It's actually what I've found over the last couple of years helping journalists start using social media. The really good journalists are often the ones who are really good at social media. They've already got a lot of the skills. They know how to build networks. They know how to hunt down information. Yes, they're doing that in a different format and in a different landscape, but all the skills are very similar. And I think the danger is that when new things come along, the temptation is to just forget everything you knew before, to assume that it's all new and we're all starting from scratch. Actually, those of us who've been in an industry for a while, have built up an experience, have a lot to add too. And the way they use those tools might be just fascinating and crucial to using those tools really well for the kind of purposes you're trying to get to. So don't just assume that you have to forget everything you knew in order to be really good at this. And don't just assume that you have to be on every latest network. Start small and make sure you're listening to all the clues you're getting back.
Perfect. So in conclusion, I'm going to sort of frame this particular module in the overall scheme of things, in addition to the fact that we were running opposite, since we are certain about this world but uncertain about how we're going to use it. You've already heard this cliche term, but I will tell you over time, you will stop hearing about analog and digital. You know, we talk about analog and digital. I've got some news for you. That's yesterday's story. Okay? You're not going to hear about analog and digital in 2-3 years. You are not going to hear about above the line and below the line. So stop organizing above the line, below the line. Stop organizing analog and digital. The reason being is, think about this. All things that are analog are becoming digital. All things that are digital are becoming mobile. All things that are mobile are becoming analog. And you might say, what did that mean? It means once you basically have stuff on your phone, place and people start mattering again a lot. And so the whole idea of what's analog and what's digital starts to disappear. When someone is on Facebook and they go from basically hearing from a friend to completing a transaction, all exactly there, is that above the line or below the line? So we're using not only bad containers, bad mindsets, but terminology that doesn't make any sense for where the world is going. What you will hear is a cliched term, but very few people are thinking about it, which is paid, owned, and earned connections, or paid, owned, and earned media. And every single media will be paid, owned, and earned. So Facebook has a paid, owned, and earned capability. The reason being is because of the internet, marketers don't necessarily have to put all their money into a newspaper to reach people. They will now put money into a newspaper to get people to come to their owned asset on Facebook, where they will then engage with people. So in effect, what's beginning to happen is marketers around the world are changing. I know this for a fact because we are turning our entire company on paid, owned, and earned. So you're going to see us taking, the 2 largest media communication and 2 largest digital agencies, $70 billion of spend, and we're betting it in only one thing, that the future is paid, owned, and earned. So as you think about the future, think about even some of the ways you measure and the way you think, because that's changing. Thank you very much. So I guess we're done.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Kate.